What's up, guys and gals? This is why live service games are dying. The more I worked on this video, the more the failure of the live service game genre seemed to be inevitable and not merely coincidental. The live service game genre is in serious trouble, with a number of very expensive high-profile flops like Diablo 4, Marvel's Avengers, Suicide Squad, Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and of course Fallout 76, as well as a number of high-profile multiplayer flops like Halo Infinite, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3, and Overwatch 2. These games and many others like them have not only cost hundreds of millions of dollars, but they have greatly harmed the reputation of studios like Rocksteady and Bethesda. At this point in 2024, the term live service has become poison on the level of the term MCU. But how did we get here? How did this happen? Well, to learn that, we have to first go back. The live service game genre was popularized in 2014 with the launch of Destiny. Now, the idea of monetizing a game after its launch was not a new one. As a matter of fact, World of Warcraft was one of the most popular games of all time, and it had a business model based off of monetizing a finished game in order to make money to release content. But Destiny was really the first time a mainstream gaming audience became aware of the idea of monetizing a game in order to release future content. Even though Destiny shipped in a pretty shitty state, it eventually became a truly great game. This solidified the live service game genre as one of the most popular in gaming, at least for a few years. So I was doing a lot of thinking and researching on when and how the trouble really started, when the word live service turned from an interesting new concept into toxic poison. And while I thought about starting with the launch of Destiny 2, I think it's actually the advent of loot boxes from companies like Electronic Arts and games like Star Wars Battlefront 2 that actually started the downfall that led to such a negative viewpoint of the term live service games. The live service game genre in 2024 is facing seemingly unovercomable challenges that I believe are unfortunately intrinsic or necessary to the very concept of a live service game. The first, and maybe even the biggest for the companies, but not for us, is an ever-dwindling player base. In 2014, these games felt new and exciting. The promise of extra content in future made for no additional cost made people excited and hopeful. Hopeful that even games that were unfinished at launch, like Destiny, could still have hope that they would be great games one day, also like Destiny, and it was going to be for free. However, over the years, we learned two things. First, we learned this new content would under no circumstances be free. A lot of times, these games would even charge separately for it, as well as the microtransactions and the original cost. Secondly, we learned the promise of fixing these games was mostly bullshit, with the vast majority of them dying long before they were ever fixed. So over the ensuing years, most of us have abandoned live service games, seeing them as nothing more than cheap cash grabs. And this viewpoint has led to a seemingly never-ending dwindling player base. This has become the biggest problem facing live service games. Players already most likely have one of these games they're in love with, whether it's Destiny, Warframe, Vanguard, Vermintide 2, or a number of other live service games. These gamers are not necessarily looking for the next great live service game, because they already have one they're addicted to. And this becomes a huge problem with the very nature and design of live service games. They are designed to prey on people with gambling addictions and video game addictions in order to unlock the next tiny piece of cosmetic, the next gun or next piece of gear, even though they know they will lose all of it when the next game comes out. This also means that the players are tied to these games, because the players will lose a fortune for leaving the live service game they're currently playing and going to a new one. This decreases the likeliness of success for all future live service games. So this dying fan base means developers have much less opportunity for success in the future of this genre. Adding on top of that fact, toxic monetization, the idea that players will continue to come back and spend tons and tons and tons of their hard-earned money in the cash shop, is an intrinsic part of the live service business model. This means these games must retain players for a very long time. This far too often means these live service games are very, very, very grindy and repetitive, boring, and far too easy. As developers are only concerned with player retention and not with making a good story, good gameplay, or fun and rewarding progression. And if that wasn't all bad enough, on top of all of it, you get boring, repetitive, grindy combat loops that are way too easy. And add on top of that, boring, forgettable, preachy characters that nobody likes, and you have a genre that's in serious trouble. The live service genre also has too many artificial restrictions, preventing players from leveling up and progressing at a rate that seems reasonable. Developers also limit how fast you can progress through stuff like battle passes, in the hopes that these artificial restrictions will keep players playing for hours, days, months, and years. But for the vast majority of gamers like us, this doesn't work. We just say fuck it and quit playing the game. The worst example of this artificial grindiness was at its most obvious with the launch of Halo Infinite, with its ridiculous restrictions making it so you could not complete the battle pass in a reasonable time, forcing you to spend countless additional hours playing the game or grinding out the game, because once you completed your challenges, you couldn't do any more progress in the battle pass. And what us gamers told 343 and the industry as a whole is that we were just unwilling to put up with this artificial grindiness, these artificial restrictions limiting how fast we could progress in our games. Add to all these other problems the insane, unreasonable cost of live service games, which often still retail at $70 or even up to $120 for the deluxe premium editions. And that's just to start. That's before you spend any additional money in these games' cash shops. This means these games might cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Or maybe just thousands of dollars. Hundreds of thousands might be a little dramatic. For games that often have much less content than single-player games, like Harry Potter or Baldur's Gate 3. Live service multiplayer games are even more grindy. This means the devs are trying to get more money out of an ever-dwindling player base that already is being pumped for every single dollar they have by one of these other live service games that they're already addicted to. And now the devs want that tiny player base with their ever-dwindling bank accounts to just jump into their game and dump thousands of dollars into it. Even though the newest live service games will not be that much different than the one they're playing now. No wonder this genre is failing. On top of that, normal players are unwilling to spend thousands on a game that has less content and value than a single-player game that you can buy for $70 and own. This leads to the inevitable conclusion that there will never again be enough money to support the massive amount of live service games Western studios want to release in a given year. So it makes the genre a massive boondoggle. And if that wasn't already enough to make the average player think the term live service is toxic poison, these games have the audacity to require an always online persistent internet connection, even if you're trying to play single player. The always online nature of these games has caused so many problems for the live service genre, as the vast majority of them simply do not work when they launch. Just look at Suicide Squad to Kill the Justice League, Destiny, Diablo 4, and Redfall, and so many others are just absolutely unplayable for a few days, if not longer, after they launch. This means not only are these games incredibly expensive, but you can't count on them to actually work when you do eventually get them. On top of that, most of them are completely unfinished the day they come out. This means the best way to play a live service game is actually to wait almost a year or more after they come out, or until there's a reasonable amount of content in them. However, this is a massive catch-22. Because if nobody plays these games, they are going to die and will never actually be fixed. Adding to this problem, most single-player games ship with much more and better content than the majority of live service games, which means you pay 20 times more for the average live service game and you get not even half the amount of content. The next major issue facing the live service genre is how homogeneous they all feel, or same feeling if you prefer. Whether you've played 1 or you've played 10 live service games, you'll notice they're pretty much all the same. They break down into a simple gameplay loop. Kill, collect loot, go back to the hub-board, decode the loot you just collected, get pounded over the head with options to buy cosmetics, weapon upgrades, XP boosters, or a million other stupid things. Go back into the hub world to do more pointless, super easy combat, to get more guns with slight stat increases, to go back to replay story missions you've already beaten. Add on top of that little or no story content. And even though devs always promise more story in the future, it's not substantial enough or frequent enough to keep players like us playing the games long term. Throw on top of that massive pile, a combat system that is way too easy and feels like every other game in the genre. And on top of that, the limited story content that is here on the launch of these games often feels pointless, boring, and unimaginative. Add on top of that, homogeneous, forgettable, and mostly unlikable characters. And on top of that, as if all that wasn't bad enough, you also have an intentionally handicapped and nerfed progression system designed to force players into the cash shop in order to make the game even remotely fun. On top of all of those other things, you have tons of trash cosmetics in cash shops, weapon modifiers that only give you like a 1.5 damage boost, normally boring and grindy and pointless crafting systems. And then if all that wasn't enough, they lock all the cool, interesting cosmetics behind paywalls. Not to mention the constant, annoying reminders, pop-up screens, messages, and 1,000 other things designed to force you into these obnoxious cash shops. Then you also add on the top of that the games that still have loot boxes, these fancy loot box unlock animations, and other even more insidious methods designed to prey on players with addiction problems. And you get the most toxic business model I've ever seen. Unfortunately, as I pointed out earlier, even multiplayer games have been heavily affected by the disease that is live service gaming. Just look at games like Halo, Battlefield, Call of Duty, and so many more that have been badly damaged or destroyed by the live service business model. With battle passes that often include XP modifiers, XP level ups, unfair broken pay-to-win guns, and on top of that, a lot of times the vast majority of skins and weapon skins and character skins are not included in the battle pass. Instead, a lot of the very interesting skins or weapon modifiers or anything you want to talk about is included in a separate cash shop. So not only do you have to drop $100 on the game, not only do you have to buy the DLCs that come out for the game, which typically retail from between $30 and $40, not only do you have to buy the battle pass to progress in the game, not only do you have to grind out 50 to 60 to 70,000 hours on a multiplayer game to unlock anything remotely reasonable, but on top of that, they want you to spend $20, $30, $40, even $50 for something like fucking blue in a cash shop. Not to mention the intentional limiting of content on launch. It's been proven in so many of these games, from Call of Duty to Halo, that they've had more multiplayer maps finished when a game comes out, but choose not to launch them in order to have something to launch the next month. On top of that, multiplayer games in the modern era lack all kinds of features. They often lack leaderboards. They often have no way to see your KD because they would hate for somebody who's not good at the game to see that they're not good at the game. That person might quit and not go to the cash shop and spend thousands of dollars of mommy's money. On top of that, you have basically no stat tracking in multiplayer games anymore. Back in the old days when we played Halo 2, you would actually not only be able to break down every individual stat you had overall, from KO death ratio to time alive to time at the flag to flag captures to flag takes to how long you had the flag, but you could also go back and break down every single game you played. The game kept it. You could go back, you could see where you died, you could see where you got kills, you could see how many kills you had on that map, you could see who your opponents were. But these stats are conveniently removed from modern multiplayer games because the point of modern multiplayer games isn't to make multiplayer great or fun or entertaining. It's to make typically teenagers, because I was a teenager when I loved multiplayer, so that's not meant to be a criticism, typically teenagers forced into the cash shop where they will buy skins to show off to their friends. When you used to show off those 6 skills to your friends, now it's about having the newest, coolest skin. And if that wasn't bad enough, if all that wasn't bad enough, you also get grindy and artificially limited progression through these battle passes because they're so afraid that somebody might unlock all the content in them and then turn the game off. Pretty much all the negative things from co-op live service games are carried over into multiplayer live service games, making it so even playing with your friends often can't save these games. With all of this stuff we've already gone over, it makes it very difficult for the devs to sell me or any of us gamers these days on the idea of buying yet another unfinished live service game. We already played so many live service games in the years since Destiny came out that I personally never want to see one again. Adding on top of the problems in this genre, most developers do not want to work on a live service game. And that's because when you try to make a live service game, everything must fit into the business model of live service. This means your story, your gameplay, your characters, your locations, you're always online, the game controls, and yes, even the people you play with have to fit into the live service concept. This means the game designers are not free to create new and interesting ideas, new and interesting combat, new and interesting stories, locations, or characters. Because everything must be monetized, and players must be forced into the cash shop. Because otherwise, how can you find and target the people with potential addiction problem that you have to have? Otherwise, the live service concept is dead on arrival. Companies pour hundreds of millions of dollars into these games hoping to create addiction simulators that will turn players into money wells. That's why these games have such easy difficulty, because they want you and me and all gamers to turn your brain off. They want you to be almost numb, to not be thinking. They want you in an almost robotic state. So without thinking about it, you will simply purchase the next piece of DLC, the next piece of cosmetic to show off to your friends, people who will probably never meet in real life. And this is part of it too. If you only interact with these people in the game, it raises the perceived value of cosmetics. Finally, live service games have to be created for all players. This means that individual feelings of accomplishment that is so important to RPGs is gone. If you down a boss, everyone else would have had to down the same boss in the same way. A lot of times even using the same weapons. If you find a new land to explore, somebody else has already beaten you to it. On top of that, the new land is likely going to feel exactly like the one you just left, with slightly reskinned enemies with the same attack patterns that die with very little effort. If you find a new weapon, a badass, super badass weapon, too bad, someone else will have the same weapon. And because of the limited weapon variety in these games, somebody you play with will likely have the same weapon you do. All individualism is removed to be locked behind paywalls. You want to look different than your friends? That's going to be $50. And you better hope your friends don't spend the same $50, otherwise you still don't look different. You want a new emote? Well, fuck you, give me money. You thought you could unlock cool cosmetics, cool emotes, cool stuff just by playing the game? What are you, crazy? You think this is 2014? The only thing that could make you even slightly unique is the cosmetic skins you pay for. But it's not like someone else can't just buy the same skin. It's just if you have ones no one else you know does. You might be able to look unique from other people you play with, but probably not. Because all they have to do is go drop $20 on the same skin. They didn't earn anything. Remember Halo Reach? Well, you might not have ever played Halo Reach. So back in those days, the progression in Reach was all based off of your ability. If you had these badass skins for your Spartan in Reach's multiplayer, it's because you did some ridiculous thing, like got 1,000 kills, or beat the Glasso campaign, or was just great at the game. So when someone saw you with that flaming head, or the sword, or the skins, or the armors, they were like, oh shit, this motherfucker's for real. Now when I see somebody with all these fancy skins, armors, or whatever, I think, wow, this motherfucker's stupid, and has spent shit tons of their own or their parents' money buying shit that is useless and going to go away the very next time the game designers feel like taking it away from them. It's kind of an intrinsic value of life that the live service genre ignores, and that something you work for is always much more rewarding than something given to you. And while it is true you're spending money so the skins aren't being given to you, they feel like they're being given to you, which is kind of the point. All that means that these live service games do not make you feel special, unique, or interesting. You're not having a great adventure like you used to feel like when you played old RPGs. Think about it. Nothing feels really special about being a Guardian in Destiny. It's not like being the Master Chief in Halo. Yes, everybody else who played Halo was the Master Chief, but I was my Master Chief. And the Guardian is just an example. This is a problem the whole genre has. Your character doesn't feel special. You're not unique. You're just one of many. You're just a drone and a cog in a machine that will never end. No matter how many times you kill the boss, the next time you click on the mission, he's going to be right there again. It makes one wonder, what's the point? I mean, these bosses all come back. The loot they drop is all recycled. Your allies, your friends, your people you know, they've all downed them. What's the point? Like, I honestly don't know. Live service fans in the comments, let me know. What's the point? What do you get out of these games? I mean, what did you accomplish the 10 hours or 15 hours you spent playing Destiny or The Division 2 or even Overwatch? What's the point? Now, if you're going to tell me the point of games is just to have fun, more power to you, and you're correct. And if these games are fun to you, more power to you as well. I'm certainly not telling you can't enjoy these games. But how do you enjoy it when every area you explore has already been explored? Every boss you kill has already been killed. Every area, every cave, every item crafted, every weapon, every enemy. Everything has been done. So, as I pointed out, you accomplish nothing. The more I work on this video, the more I start to think live service games are the definition of insanity, doing the same thing and expecting different results. So, as I ask, what's the point of continuing to play them, or buying the next one, forking out money for Suicide Squad, or the inevitable ones that will come out later this year? So, my final thoughts on this subject, and this has been a fairly long one, I hope you guys have enjoyed it. So, the more I worked on this video, the more the failure of the live service game genre seemed inevitable. It seemed like a surprise the genre hasn't failed already. This is a genre propped up by kids and people with gambling addictions, and companies trying to squeeze money out of the ever-dwindling player base. The genre itself has become too similar, too homogenous stories. A genre that often feels like it has no unforgettable characters, no name characters, no Doom Guy, no Master Chief, no Golden Freeman. And that is barely propped up by a forgettable, unforgivable gameplay loop, a boring tedium. crafting systems that feel empty and pointless, weapon modifiers that are literally the stupidest thing that exists, and a genre that storylines, gameplay, characters, writing, and nearly every other aspect of them is behind every other genre in the industry. And even worse is the massive amount of damage it causes, not only to the individuals who spend so much time and money on these games, but it also causes a massive toll of destruction on the companies who have sold their soul for the hope of getting an easy cash grab that people are still playing years after they come out, even after making multiple terrible pieces of content. Games like Destiny still vacuum up money. They still make so much, which is why Sony bought Bungie. And forgive me, Destiny fans, I'm not trying to pick on Destiny. It's just a great high-profile example of actually a successful live service game. And the first Destiny's kind of good. The second one's dog shit, but the first one's kind of good. And this is why all these companies are selling their soul to the devil to try to make their own Destiny. But all the rest of the games in this genre seem to be perpetually chasing Destiny with no chance of ever catching up. You add on top of this the modern audience problem that Hollywood is dying from, and the fact that Western studios are forcing more of the intersectionalism into the games. So now you have boring, unlikable characters, you have tedious, repetitive combat, you have cash shops, and now you've got all this shit thrown in on top of it. And you get a game genre that truly appeals to no one. I believe these games capitalize on the fact that people have fun playing with their friends. That they have fun with their friends. I think the game genre is about monetizing your friend. And then you see high-profile flop after high-profile flop, not just in Hollywood, but also in the game industry. It's no surprise to me, or really anyone who doesn't work at Rocksteady, that Suicide Squad to Kill the Justice League was dead on arrival. And it will be no surprise when most of the other live service games launching in 2024 fail on arrival as well. On top of that, and maybe the saddest state of the live service genre, is a lot of times when these games go down hard, they either tank the reputation of the studio or take the studio with them. Just take games like Redfall, Fallout 76, Overwatch 2, and so many others that have either destroyed the studio that made them or damaged its reputation possibly beyond repair. And when you really think about all these things we've covered in this video, the fact that so many companies, so many greedy, self-righteous, moronic CEOs are willing to bite at the forbidden fruit that is live service gaming is truly incredible. It is one of the most mind-boggling things, second only to Hollywood attacking their own fans and tanking their own genre. We live in a weird time, guys. We live in a time where the game industry and these people who are supposedly creating entertainment fucking hate the people buying the entertainment they create. And they tank their own massive companies, costing billions of dollars and costing millions of people their jobs because some stupid CEO needed to make the next live service game or get some brownie points at the intersectional Olympics, and gave up on great storytelling, gave up on great unique experiences in order to try to grab just that next little bit of money, because God forbid you have to actually bust your ass and come up with something unique when you could just throw intersectionalism in it or throw microtransactions in it and hope that the people who like it, while they're not as big as the people who don't, will prop up your stories, prop up your games, and make you feel special. Everything these companies have done now has led to this moment. The player base is almost gone. It wouldn't be surprised to me at all to see yet another string of ultra high profile flops this year. I'm not talking about in Hollywood, that's inevitable. I'm talking about in the game industry. It's sad to see the live service genre, a genre with great potential, falling into the same black hole so many other things have. Greed. Because making $500, $600, $700 million, even $1 billion isn't enough. because these companies don't understand why they would leave money on the table. If they make $1 billion but could make $2, why wouldn't they? They don't understand long-term thinking. They don't understand the damage they cause to the industry, the genres they make, or anything else. And while the live service genre will likely persist forever, because there will always be another group of whales to pour thousands of dollars into games not worth 50, the majority of us gamers are moving on to bigger and better things. We're moving on to indie titles like Baldur's Gate 3, like Vampire Rising. Even some AAA games these days like Star Wars Jedi Survivor, Grounded, and others still are fantastic. Gaming is a rich ecosystem. Unlike Hollywood, the poison hasn't gotten in as far yet. Gaming still has tons of great pieces of gaming content that comes out every year. Plus, thanks to websites like Steam, the massive backlog of games from the past are all easily accessible. You can go and play just about any game on Steam, and most of the time they work on any computer without too much effort. You've also got GOG, who takes the time to make old games work. This means that unlike the film industry, gamers are not forced to eat the shit that they try to shove down our throats. We can always just go back and play the games we loved when we were kids. And it's this is a somber moment. We gotta all just take a second here to mourn the loss of Halo, Call of Duty, Diablo, and yes, even Destiny, because the first game was a good game after they finished it. The second one is the biggest mess of any game I think I've ever played. Never be suckered in by a liar. And next time you see a live service game pop up on your screen, don't buy it until after the reviews come out. Be sure you're not wasting your money again. Be sure you aren't biting at the forbidden fruit of live service. Thanks for watching. Come back next time. And as always, this is a damn nerd signing out.